Home is more than a place. Home is where our identities are formed, where family and community comfort us, where the foundation of our lives is built. Immigrants leave behind everything they've known, their families, their histories, and their homes, in search of something greater. Leaving home is not always an end, but the start of a new chapter. It's the courage to seek out new possibilities, to chase dreams, and to create new places of belonging. These are the stories of finding a place, a community, a chosen home.
So my name is Marcia Scarpim, and I'm from Brazil. So I grew up in a very small city in Brazil called Arapongas. My whole life I have been studying public schools, and I have opportunity to be here for 7 months in my PhD because my program had a partnership with Indiana University. And when I have this opportunity to live here in the United States, I have this opportunity to see how life is easy here in the United States when you compare it to Brazil. So when I come back to Brazil, I was married at the time, and I told George and say, George, I want to live in the United States. And he told, okay, Marcia, how?
I'm George Scarpim. I was a faculty member, an accounting faculty in my home country, Brazil, for some time. And then start talking to my wife and then, okay, let's try. And then Concordia invited me to come. And then that is how we came here. And then some years later, my wife started teaching here as well at Concordia in 2023.
I think I was very proud for myself, have this courage to move to Brazil, to the United States. Also, I'm very proud to offer for my daughter possibilities. And it's very interesting because Gab, my daughter, she born here and it's truly Minnesota. Like truly, she loves cold, she loves snow, she loves skating. But every year we go to Brazil because I want make sure Gabby knows she has a Brazilian family. In our home, we just speak in Portuguese with her, just in Portuguese. And I think this is important for her. You know, this is important for her to know her heritage. And for me today, this is my home, you know. And this is so important, have home.
Okay, so my name is Zachariah Amin, and I go by Zach. So I was born and raised in the city of Erbil. It is one of the oldest city in the world, and we call it Kurdistan. Kurdistan is not a country, but there's a semi-autonomous region. My dad passed away when I was only 11 months, and we had a very big family. My mother had to raise and take care of all the kids, like 11 kids. I was born in 1980, and I finished my college and my schooling there, and I became a teacher for a couple of years before I became a translator for the American Army and police trainers. It was really hard working because we were going to very high-risk areas and at that time there were like lots of extremist groups. They were making explosions and things like that, and we had to go to those kind of places. I don't want to hide from you that I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and when there's a sound, it just reminds me about the sounds of the explosions. Sometimes I do have nightmares. It's not easy. It's not easy, no. One of the things actually that drives me to be hopeful and working hard is my kids. I had one son when my wife, when we immigrated to here, and I have 2 other sons. They born here. And their success is mine, their happiness is mine, so I'm living for them. One thing that I do have as an advice for myself, for my family, and for every immigrant is that they they need to get adapted as much as they can, and they should not be hesitant that if they get adapted, that's at the expense of their culture. That's not true. They can still maintain and promote their culture, practice their culture, and be part of what they are, keep their identity, respecting the system over here, knowing the language, getting along with the other people. It has nothing to do with losing your identity. I'm still Kurdish, I'm American, Kurdish American. I love my city now. This is my home, my first home. I love my country, I love the system, I love every single part of this country, but I still think about where I came from.
My name is Fawzia Adi. I am originally from Somalia. I was born in Mogadishu. I arrived to Moorhead area 1997 December. I left my country when I was around 9 years old. In 1990, Somalia, we had a war that started. First, it was a coup who was overtaking the government, but then it turned out to be a civil war. And then I came to Kenya. We were 3,500 in our refugee camp. It used to be called Hatimi Refugee Camp in Mombasa. Because the refugee camp I was in, most of them was settled here in the Lutheran Social Services. And then me alone, I was settled in Washington, D.C. So once we arrived to United States, we start communicating. Where are you? I'm in Ohio, I'm in North Dakota. So this communication, I told them about my struggle and how I'm working 7-Eleven in the nighttime, in the morning, I'm working housekeeping, and I can barely afford my life. And they told me, well, here in Fargo Moorhead, it's affordable. At that time, apartments were like $425 for 2 bedrooms. So I catch the Greyhound. What surprised me the most, it was the ethnicity culture in America, the black and the white and the racism. They were hard for me to swallow. So I did not allow that to come through me. I just focused forward what I wanted to do and how I wanted to grow in this community. When you are a refugee, you have 2 different minds. You just came from a hardship. You just came from a war and living in the worst way of life, and all of a sudden you are in a world where they're ahead in technology, ahead in everything. So there is a human, what they call, ability inside of you that kicks in and says, you know what, we can do it.
My name is Kawar Farouk. I'm from the Kurdistan part of Iraq, but I was never born there. I was born in a refugee camp in Turkey. So when we fled to Turkey, again, being an oppressor of Kurds for hundreds and hundreds of years, Turkey told us we were not going to be allowed in. And they threatened to submit us back to Saddam Hussein's forces, which would have been pure genocide. Eventually, they succumbed to pressure from UN and from the Western powers, and they allowed us through. I was born a year later, in 1989. My parents spent 4 years in refugee camps. I know it's really hard for Americans to relate. And when I say Americans, I'm an American, but I mean general people that have never left their country. It's extremely hard to relate to a refugee or someone leaving persecution because you've never been in a situation where you just gather a backpack or a bag and then you're on your way. There's no time to grab a couch and a bed and haul it with you in a U-Haul truck. It doesn't exist. They say the second generation typically loses the mother tongue. And that holds true. And I'm a proven fact of that. My kids know Kurdish to a very limited degree. My oldest is 6. My second oldest is 4. And I have a newborn that's 5 months almost. But I did something that my parents couldn't do. I gave them names that were both able to use in Kurdish and English. Therefore, my kids wouldn't feel the way I felt. Because when your teacher struggles on a name, you know it's yours. And I had that happen throughout my life, most of my life, being Kawar. But I named my daughter Ava, which Ava in Kurdish means foundation, And when my wife and I got married and we had our first kid, we wanted that to be our foundation. So we named her Ava. My son's name is Ari, and Ari is also in Kurdish, so it goes both ways, Ari and Ari. And then my youngest is Avi. In Kurdish, it means an area with plenty of water. So I gave my kids names at least where general population can say their name without any fear of, oh, they're not American, which unfortunately it's true. With people my generation though, which is probably the first wave of kids from the 91, 92 immigration, this is home for us. I mean, when I go to Kurdistan, I love it. I absolutely love it. People around me all speak the same language I do. The culture, the food, everything's great. But I still miss Moorhead.
My name is Jihan Briefki. I was born in Kurdistan, which is north of Iraq. We fled Kurdistan region of Iraq in 1988 due to the ongoing war that was happening in Kurdistan region of Iraq. I was probably like 2 years old, 3 years old when all of this was happening. My mom was a single mom with 6 kids. Our family started walking to Turkey, going for about, I believe it was 4 nights and 5 days of walking. The camp was pretty much a desert. There was no trees, there was no bathrooms, there was no water, electricity, nothing. Each family was given a little tent, maybe that was good for 2 to 3 people. And our families lived in these tents for 4 years. When we left the Turkish camp, we had nothing. It was just us. It was my mom, it was myself and my 2 brothers and my sister and my nephew. It was very difficult for my mom because, I mean, due to the ongoing conflict, the war, she never had the opportunity to get her education. So she was not able to read, write in her own language, and then come into the United States with these little kids and not being able to speak English, not being able to drive. Getting a job was almost impossible for her. So our sponsors, came and registered us for school. My brothers, my sisters, we all promised ourselves we would get ourselves a job and, support our mom and try to live better. I do a lot of projects with Immigrant Development Center helping immigrants. We have a program, Driving for Success, where we're helping immigrant women, that are new to the country or are having a difficult time learning how to take the permit test. That gives them empowerment. They're able to go to work and find a job because this is a place for opportunity, If I had not come here, I would not be who I am today, Like my kids would not have the life they had. So I feel like America has given me that opportunity that I never thought in a lifetime. This little girl trying to survive genocide. I'm just so grateful that, we were able to be part of the community and also contribute as much as we can.
My name is Joseph Patrick Mooney, and if you say that in Gaelic, it's Joseph Amwainig is my name. I live in Crookston, Minnesota. I was born in England, but at the age of 8, we moved back to Ireland, and then I spent the next 18 years in Ireland, so I consider myself Irish. My parents are Irish, so I consider myself Irish. So I worked at a pharmaceutical company in the middle of Ireland that was called Elan Pharmaceuticals that was started by an American from Georgia. And we wanted to market one of our products in the US, but we weren't big enough. So we partnered with an American pharmaceutical company and they sent over some Americans. So I married an American. And then in 1989 moved to Kansas City. That's where the pharmaceutical company was there. Lived in Kansas City for about 7 years, and then a friend of mine moved to California to work for a biotechnology company over there called Amgen. I'd never been to California, so I went for an interview, and I ended up in California for the next 22 years. Then I left San Diego and went to Fargo for a year, worked for a company there, and then I decided to quit science. And my wife had a very successful photography business, so then I joined her business and worked with her. So some of my first initial impressions of the US when I got here was, one, the magnitude of the country. In Ireland, you can drive from one side to the other in about 2 hours. So I've lived in a lot of places, and people always ask me, what's your favorite? And I say, I have no favorite. I enjoyed all of them because of the differences. Living in different countries and different states has given me a very unique perspective of the world, and even America. To me, America is a very fragmented country at times. You know, we're very unified in certain situations, and then there's others where we're very, very fragmented. I believe in embracing those differences and coming to America, and there is a lot of people who do want to come here. Yes, there's parts of the world that hate America and what it represents, but it gives people a lot of opportunity. I would not have this life, I don't think, if I had stayed in Ireland. And it's not that I wanted this life. That was not my goal in coming here. It happens here, you know.
My name is Siham Ahmedi. I was born in northern Iraq, Kurdistan, and now I live in Moorhead, Minnesota, and I have lived in Moorhead for the last 24 years. So I was born in 1990 in a very picturesque town on the border of Iraq and Turkey. It's a plateaued mountain. It's got mountains cascading all around it. It's absolutely beautiful. And that's where my last name comes from, Ahmedi, Ahmedieh. I had 4 younger siblings. I was 6 years old and my mom was pregnant. And we were a part of the wave called Operation Pacific Haven that the U.S. did, which was about 6,000 Kurds being transported from Kurdistan, Iraq, through Turkey, and then to Guam for 6 months. We came to Fargo March of 1997. And it was hard. My dad did work at a lot of different things, but he became really frustrated because he was supposed to work, he was supposed to take care of the family, he was supposed to learn the language, and he felt like he had no support. I knew I had to work really hard in school, even, not having the support at home. I didn't have parents that could help me with homework. I had to help my siblings with homework. I started to do very well and knew I had to turn to that. As soon as I became proficient in the language, I was helping my parents with paperwork, going to employers with my dad and just doing that. I was absolutely terrified. I mean, at this point, I was the oldest of 5 children. I just really became that person for my family that did everything. So a lot of responsibility was shouldered on me, and there's a running joke now as we reflect on it and think about the immigrant experience, especially when it comes to women and daughters. It's so stressful. It's like, are you happy or are you the oldest of an immigrant family? I stretched myself too thin. I had the cultural expectations of helping people. I tried to integrate into society. I tried to do well and work, and it really took a toll on me. The fact that I went from my parents surviving to a college graduate from a highly challenging institution was a miracle. I was born 3,000 miles away on a mountain that nobody had ever heard of. And now I'm in the Great Plains. And so I don't know what tomorrow will bring.
My name is Kani Adan, and I am from Somalia. I flee from my country because of a threat to myself. In Somalia, I came from a small city called Hudur, and I was running a non-profit organization back home called CPHR, Center for Peace and Human Rights, and I was advocating girls go to school and empowering also women. And there was extremist organizations in our area called Al-Shabaab. They didn't like what I was doing. When the threat come to my way and a lot of my friends get killed, we did not prepare a lot. Actually, we have not been thinking in America back then. We have been thinking in Europe, somewhere that we can have peace. And we just make a deal with someone, okay? We just want to be out. We just want to be safe, right? Then I came a neighbor country called Kenya. I spent 4 months in Kenya. Then I came to Latin America in Brazil again. Then from Brazil, I went through the Colombia jungle. I was in 4 nights and 4 days walking the Colombian jungle. Then on my way to Panama, then Panama to Costa Rica to Nicaragua, Honduras, and El Salvador, Mexico, Texas. So yes, I was one of those who came in the country as illegal, and I have been waiting to get my asylum approved since 2015, and I just get approved 2024. I am a man of work. I really want to help people around me. I want to feel that my time, my ability, my energy is fruitful for the people that I live with. Now I am a founder of New Road Midwest. It's another organization. Also, I am the district liaison for Moher Area Public Schools. Fargo Moher is home now. This is my home. My family is here. I am here. I found this area a community that loves one another. People that come together one another. Doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. We all come together in the streets, parks, celebrating for our differences in cultural events and all that. So I believe I found new home.
My name is Hashim Goran. I live in Moorhead, Minnesota since 2012. I was born and raised in a small town couple mile north of Erbil city, which is the capital of Kurdistan region in Iraq. That was back in 1981. But in 2003 and 2004, I tried hard to learn English. And in 2005, I started a job with US Army as a translator. We were kind of experiencing sniper attack, mortar attack, IEDs, explosives, and even suicidal bomb. It was tough experience that we went through, but I am proud that I could do something to help rebuild Iraq after removing the former regime. In 2012, as a privilege of what we have done, I was offered a special immigrant visa for myself and my family. My wife, my 2 young children, oldest was 3 years, youngest was 3 months, and I were moved to Moorhead, Minnesota in 2012. Of course, it's not easy when you move to different country, different cultures. You know, everything was different around us. The language is different, the people are different. Getting a job was not easy for me, despite the experiences that I had. But later on, I was able to continue with my education. Right now, I'm an AMFIB job counselor with a rural Minnesota SEP/career force in Moorhead. Also, I've been helping my community and whoever needed help with whatever I could. To be honest, if not because of the war and some other problems that Iraq went through, living in Iraq was easier. You know, the way of life, but it's not safe. I'm glad that we chose a safer area for our kids. Like, my kids and my family have better future living here, away from those experiences that I went through in Iraq.
My name is Azad Barwari and I live in Moorhead, Minnesota. I am from Kurdistan, which would be northern Iraq. I was a heavy reader back home, and it was a dangerous thing in Saddam's era. I always had a dream about studying at an American university. It was like as if you say, next week I'm gonna be on Mars. It's of course impossible. It wasn't a choice. When we fled Iraq and we were in refugee camps in Turkey, and after interviews with the United Nations, they assigned us to different lists, and I became a refugee in Sweden. So after I came to Sweden and I became a Swedish citizen, I could get student loan for studying abroad. So I came to the United States as an international student in '98. And then I came to NDSU. I get a bachelor and a master's of sociology and a doctoral degree in emergency management. I have one child, a 15-year-old child. I try to do my best to raise her, be bilingual, bicultural, because it's a great strength. Home is something that where you grow up, you internalize social values, cultural values, what's right, what's wrong, what's rewarded, what's sanctioned. You grow up with those dreams. And when I was a teenager, Saddam's forces pulled us out of our homes and burned the village in front of us. So for me, home is burned, doesn't exist anymore. For us, many people like me, I have many homes. I had a home in Sweden, I had a home at NDSU, I have a home where I live now, but it's never the home that was burned. So I do my best to give that peaceful environment for my daughter to grow up in it and have her dreams come true, hopefully.
To hear more of these stories, go to prairiepublic.org/chosenhome.
Funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4, 2008. And by the members of Prairie Public.